Hey, welcome. So neat to see so many familiar faces and quite a few new ones as well. You're in for a treat. We have a absolutely wonderful human with us today that we're going to be doing a Q&A session with. But before we kick off, I wanted to actually have a question for everyone in the room. And that is that you could be anywhere right now. You could be doing anything with anyone, but yet you chose to log into this session. So I'm curious, what is it about this session that drew you? And ultimately, why are you here? Pop it in the chat. And so cool to see people from all over the world, from SF to Singapore. Amazing. Tiny, small things. Hi, Emily. Curiosity. Linda has a book and is a longtime Nest Labs subscriber. Millie did a great pitch. Anne-Laure's book is changing my life right now. Yes, Natalie, this is exactly why I want to get Anne-Laure in. Interested to hear how our brain works as a generalist. Love the book. Great. It's so cool. We've got some readers in the room already. So this is going to be an awesome conversation. So how it's going to work is I have a few burning questions, a couple of burning questions that I'm going to kick us off with. And then we're going to actually open it up to the audience as well. I can't guarantee we'll be able to get to everyone. I have a feeling people might be very active and there might be a lot. But if you want to be dropping your questions in the chat, then we will try and come to them in the second half of the session. So we have about 55 minutes together. And I ask that you settle in, close off the other tabs, stop Slack pinging on your phone or WhatsApp, put the phone away, put it on silent, and settle in with us for the morning, evening, wherever you are in the world. So, friends, I'd love to introduce you to Anne-Laure. She is an award-winning neuroscientist, entrepreneur, and former Google exec. She is also a world-leading expert on mindful productivity and systematic curiosity. And if you've been following Generalist World for a while, you can probably tell why I am very jazzed about this conversation. She now runs Nest Labs, which obviously there are some people in the room who are readers. There are over 100,000 readers today, and researches ADHD at King's College in London. And her book, Tiny Experiments, thank you, Blur feature, keeping it very mystical, but you guys can imagine what this is offering a new model for realizing ambition, which, like, let's be honest, is super overdue. So today's session is going to be a cozy Q&A, and let's kick off. Anne-Laure, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Could you walk us through your own favorite tiny experiment? I'm hoping that by doing so, people can get a sense for what this looks like in real life.
Okay, I have a lot. That's actually a difficult question, but I think I'm going to share one that did not work out as I expected it to,
Right.
and which might be relevant to people in the room here who I expect are quite creative and maybe always thinking about whether they should start an Instagram, a YouTube, a Substack, or whatever that is that we're supposed to start these days. So about a year ago, I don't know why, but all of my friends decided that they would become YouTubers. And everybody was saying, you need to have a YouTube channel. You can't just keep on writing your newsletter. Nobody's reading newsletters anymore. It's happening on YouTube. And I wasn't 100% convinced, but all of my friends seemed to be having fun. So I decided to design a tiny experiment. And for people who haven't read the book yet, a tiny experiment is really modeled on how scientists design experiments. When a scientist designs an experiment, they only need to decide on two things: what they're going to test and for how long, how many trials. And this is how you design an experiment. So it's not a commitment to changing your entire life. It's not a new habit. It's not a New Year resolution. It's not a goal. It's really just something you're going to try and you're going to see if it works or not. So I decided that I was going to publish one weekly YouTube video until the end of the year.
Mm.
And I did it. And if I looked at the external signals of success, it looked pretty good. Quite a few subscribers, comments were positives, likes, and whatever you want to look at when you look at your YouTube channel. But if I looked at the internal signals of success, how it felt to run this channel, I hated it. I actually hated it. I I was dreading having to sit in front of this camera every week and having to record myself. I'm completely comfortable talking to someone in person or on Zoom. I can see your face, I can see people in the room, I can see people nodding or frowning and having those real-time reactions. But with YouTube, you're just literally talking to yourself. And
Mm.
um, and anytime I was supposed to record a YouTube video that day, I would be procrastinating on everything else. That was, taking so much space in my mind that I was not able to focus on any writing, any research, anything else that I was supposed to do because I kept on thinking, oh gosh, I have to sit down and record this YouTube video. So at the end of the experiment, I decided to stop and I
Mm.
didn't post any more YouTube videos. And some people might say, oh, that's a failure because she stopped her YouTube channel. And to me, it's not a failure because to a scientist, as long as you learn something new, then that's success.
Mm.
And I wasn't sure if YouTube was for me before running this experiment. And now I know it's not. So this is success to me.
Mm. I think one of the key things you said there is that it's that feeling of like, I have to do it. Not that like, oh, yay, like I can't wait to do this after like this today. And particularly, I wonder if anyone in the room can relate, drop in the chat if you can, about that feeling of procrastination. If you're just like really putting this thing off, like that's your body like screaming, maybe it's not the right thing. And also kudos, because it can be really hard when the external signals are all saying, yes, like this is amazing. You're getting all these subscribers, but you're like, yeah, but gosh, I just really don't like this.
Yeah, I think this is why designing it as an experiment is helpful in the first place because
Mm.
too often we've been taught to choose goals and then
Mm.
that becomes that destination we're supposed to reach. And if we don't reach that destination, then this is failure. And
Mm.
because of that, we sometimes tend to persist and keep on pushing through using our willpower and discipline to get to a destination we actually don't really care about. But because
Mm.
we said, I should get there, then we keep on working really hard to get there.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the mindset shift when you think of it as an experiment, is that you're just collecting data, you're
Mm.
just giving it a try,
Mm-hmm.
working on this. This is success.
Mm. What do you see? Because I imagine that a lot of people share their tiny experiments with you and this process with you. You've probably seen a lot. What do you think people get wrong when they set out on this journey of kind of they're like, I'm going to do experiments. What do you think? What are some of the mistakes or missteps that people make?
The main one is to think too big with their first
Mm.
experiment. And this is why I chose Tiny Experiments as the title of the book.
Hmm.
Because a lot of the people I work with or in the Nest Labs community are very curious and very ambitious. And
Mm.
so the first time they hear about the concept of running experiments, they go like, oh, amazing. I have 10 different ideas. I'm going to try all of these different experiments and I'm feeling so excited, so creative. And I'm like, wait a second. Wait a second. Let's start small. Let's start small, tiny experiments. The reason why you want to keep them tiny, at least the first few times you run them, and then you can become a little bit more ambitious once you're used to that process, but you need to complete the experiment in order to
Mm.
know whether that thing is working for you or not. There are lots of interesting projects or interesting paths that you might want to explore where there's a bit of a messy middle that is uncomfortable. And
Mhm.
that's why, just like a scientist, it's very important to define the duration in advance. So when a scientist designs an experiment, they don't start collecting data. And if they don't like what they're seeing, they're like, hey, I'm just going to stop the experiment. I'm not quite sure I like what I'm seeing here. They say in advance, we're going to conduct this study for that many trials with that many participants. They collect the data, and very important, they withhold judgment until they're done
Mm,
with the data. So that's why you need to decide on the duration in advance and then withhold judgment until you're done. In order to do that, and especially if you're trying something very new, very out of your comfort zone, it's better to go for something really small where you can finish it. So an experiment can be as short as 1 week or two
mm,
weeks. You can start really, really small. The great thing is if you complete your experiment and after 1 week or 2 weeks, the result is that you love it, then you can go for another cycle of experimentation where you say, you know what, actually, let's do it again. I'm going to go for 2 months this time.
mm.
And I might tweak a couple of things in my approach. I might do it a little bit differently, and I'm going to be a bit more ambitious. But you don't have to start straight away with the 3 month or the 6 month or the 1 year experiment.
Yeah, keyword tiny. Keep it tiny. Keep it tiny. Keep it doable. Finish them. That's fantastic advice. Now, I know there is a lot of generalists in the room today, a lot of curious folks, and I'm sure, like many, they grew up hearing the same thing that I heard, which is all about this linear path. It's like you get on this path, you climb the ladder, it's a straight line. And as I was reflecting on the book this morning, I found this great little passage that said, the linear way is wildly out of sync with the lives that we live today. And I underlined it because I was like, wow, like obviously, yes, that's exactly it. What advice might you have for people in the room who have these non-linear careers and who want to leverage this non-linear magic, but they feel like they're kind of stuck in these specialist boxes?
So if you're already in a non-linear career, I would say that most of the work that you can do is on a day-to-day basis, managing your anxiety,
Mm,
because you are designing the type of career that is going to give you less of a sense of certainty. I would
mm,
argue, though, that people who are in a linear career only have the illusion of certainty. These days, having a linear career and feeling like you have this job and that you're going to be able to keep on working in this job, in this career, in this industry for the rest of your life is an illusion. So at least your eyes are open. You know that that's not possible. And you know that your career is going to be nonlinear. But that also comes, this sense of awareness and self-honesty also comes with anxiety, because that also means that your career is less predictable, that you don't
mm,
know if the skills you have today are still going to be relevant tomorrow. And the world keeps on changing, you keep on changing too. It is very possible that something you find exciting today might become a bit boring to you tomorrow.
mm,
That's also possible, right? And you've probably experienced it several times already, which is why you have a non-linear career. So a lot of the work that you can do is not really to try to plan or try to control or try to have this illusion of certainty.
mm,
It's really more about managing your emotion, managing your stress response, managing your anxiety on a day-to-day basis, and really reminding yourself that this is the career that you want to build,
mm,
and that it is actually an inherent part of that career to have a little bit of that anxiety on a day-to-day basis. So embracing it, accepting it, and reminding yourself that it is part of it. It is actually part of the magic.
mm. Beautiful, fantastic answer. Another part of your book that really stood out to me was about the scripts that we all have, these life scripts that we all have, often from when we're children. And I think you called it the shackles of cognitive scripts. And I think it's so amazing that you have this neuroscience background. This is like Generalist 101 of these intersections all coming together. And so I'm wondering, what have you learned about challenging these cognitive scripts, and how might someone start today? Oh, sorry. Was that my internet?
No, I think it's on my end because everybody was gone. So
Oh, okay. Um,
no.
hmm, see. Stand by, people. A little fun technical glitch. Ad break. What's been your favorite part so far? Drop it in the chat. Hi. Ija with the upcoming events plug. Beautiful. The daily anxiety is normal. Yes,
Am I
Natalie.
back?
Yes, hi. I think we're good.
Hi. I love I was looking at the chat. I love the jokes everybody was making about interlude music, ad break. I'm sorry.
No, you're so fine. You're so fine. I think we're good.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think it should be fine. There's construction work happening in my building at the moment,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I've had those like weird, like I don't know, the internet just. Anyways, it's supposed to happen late in the evening, not now, but hopefully it should be fine. So, were you asking me about cognitive scripts?
Yes, exactly. I was wondering what you've learned about challenging these cognitive scripts. And if someone is listening and saying, I would like to do that, how might they start?
I think the first step is to identify what are the scripts that you're currently following in your life.
Mm.
What's interesting about those scripts is that a lot of them are invisible. We don't even realize that we're following them. And in the book, I talk about the three big ones that a lot of us follow. And I still find myself following sometimes where I catch myself and I'm like, oh, it's one of those scripts. That's what I'm doing here. So the first one is the sequel script. It's the script we follow when we feel like whatever decision we make today needs to make sense based on the decisions we made in the past. I'm not too worried about this script for such a community as this one, but this is the type of script people follow when they feel like whatever jobs they apply to are jobs that are aligned with the kind of studies that they did or the kind of jobs that they had in the past. And this is also why you have a lot of people who rewrite their CVs before applying to jobs because we really like having this clear, clean narrative that makes sense and that shows that, of course, we know where we're going. Of course, the narrative makes sense. And it really limits our decisions because instead of considering all of the potential options in front of us, we only go for the ones that look like they make sense. So that's the first big script that a lot of people follow. The second one is the crowd pleaser script. That's the script we follow when we make decisions based on what we think is going to make people around us happy. And those people could be friends, family, colleagues, or anyone really around us, your parents sometimes. You see that a lot in immigrant adults so who were immigrant children at some point and where the parents were very supportive and they feel like now they need to get the good job, work as a lawyer or work in tech, have a good salary because their parents worked so hard to support them while they completed their studies, for example. Or this is also when we go for the prestigious job where everybody around us is going to say, oh, wow, I can't believe you're working for Google, for Meta, for whatever. This is so cool. And so again, we limit ourselves. We might not go for the weird, quirky job nobody has heard about or that doesn't pay as well. And the last type of script, which is the most insidious one, because we all celebrate it in our societies, especially in Western societies, we all celebrate the script. And this one is the epic script, is the Hollywood script. It's the idea that whatever you do, it has to be big. It has to be impressive. It has to change the world. It has to be something you're truly passionate about. And if it's anything less than that, what are you even doing with your life? This is also very limiting in the sense that, you know what, actually, maybe I don't have that one big thing I'm super passionate about. Maybe I have two or three different things that I really like, but they're not keeping me up at night. I'm able to disconnect. I'm able to spend time with friends and family. It's not my entire life. Is something really wrong with me if that's the kind of career I have designed? According to a lot of cultures, and again, especially in Western cultures, yes, something is wrong with you if you haven't found your one true purpose. So Step number one is to try and identify when you're looking for your next opportunity, when you're considering the next project you're going to work on. Just ask yourself, go through the 3 scripts and ask yourself, am I following one of these? And then the second step is to ask yourself, do I want to follow this script or not? And that's the thing that's a little bit more nuanced that some people might realize, is that it's okay to follow some of these scripts if you do it in full awareness. So you know what, if actually you want to work at a safe job for a couple of years because you do want to be able to support your parents who have been supporting you for years, and that's what you want to do right now, and it is a little bit of a script because you want them to be happy, that's okay if you're aware that's what you're doing. If you actually want to try the big startup passion life for a few years, see if that's for you and follow the epic script, why not? Just try to, again, have this self-honesty, this awareness of why you're making the decisions that you're making, and trying to be intentional with the way you design your life and your career.
Yeah, that awareness is so key. Thank you so much. The last concept that I had a question on, and then we can start to move on to the community and audience questions, is I love the concept of your plus minus next kind of framework. I thought that was brilliant. Could you maybe give us a high level overview of what it is and how people might incorporate it into, say, their week?
So I talked already about how you can design your own tiny experiments and try new things. If you keep on doing the exact same thing over and over again with your experiments without reflecting on what's working and what's not working, you're just going to go in circles. There's no growth, right? Like, you're literally just doing the same thing over and over again. So if you want to, instead of going in circles, if you want to create growth loops where there are iterations, and where every time you complete an experiment, you learn from the experience, whether it was positive or negative, and you implement what you learned. And so plus minus next is a very simple tool to do just that. It's a tool that it takes really 5 minutes to go through it. And so you can do it every week or at the end of an experiment. And it has 3 columns. In the first column, plus, you write everything that went well. In the second column, minus, you write everything that didn't go so well. And in the last column, next, with a little arrow, you write everything you might want to tweak, everything you might want to try next, what you might want to change. And that's it. That's why it's called plus minus next. I'm very good at naming, as you can see, very original. But at least by remembering the name, you remember exactly what the tool does. What's really nice too is that I know a lot of people who use plus minus next as a weekly review tool. So every Sunday night or Monday morning, they spend 5 minutes doing that, reviewing the past week. And then in the next column, they put what they want to do for the next week. And that's not something I had designed it for, but it came from having lots of people using it and giving me feedback. Some people now use the next column to see when it's overflowing, when there are too many things in the next column. Like, yeah, I'll do this and I'll tweak that and I'll change that and I'll try this new thing. And then the next column is super long. And it's a visual reminder that you're trying to do too much right now. And so focusing on maybe 2, 3 things you want to focus on next.
Oh, that's awesome. Don't you love it how these like threads come off? This is like the beauty of experiments, right? It's like you like, this is probably what's going to happen, and then something really cool comes from it that you didn't quite expect. Okay, we have a question from Nicola, who I believe Nicola is in the room. So if she has any follow on, she can come off mute. But this is the question. So we are hearing it from all angles that we are in a huge period of change as a society. To what degree are you excited, and to what degree are you nervous for what's to come? And are there any ways that you're preparing?
I am mostly excited. At an intellectual level, I'm very excited, but sometimes my amygdala kicks in and I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Everything is so uncertain. So I do have anxiety sometimes, but it is really mostly this deep need for feeling safe our brain is optimized for survival. And so anytime we feel like we can't predict what's going to happen, there is a very natural response of fear. So I really just try to, when that happens, to notice it and recognize it for what it is. Just very natural fear coming from my brain, which is trying to protect me. And I remind myself, I tell my brain, we're okay. We're in no danger of death right now. Everything is fine. Intellectually speaking, so once I've managed, those emotions and dealing with uncertainty in general, I'm very excited. There is so much more that we can explore and achieve now that we could just a few months ago. Even today, the conversations I have with AI tools and the research I'm able to do, the speed at which I'm able to sift through papers and connect the research together and have different authors have conversations together and with me, and just, it's really crazy, right? And it's I think it's amazing. So I think the people who embrace that change and who actually keep on experimenting and playing and almost, treating those changes as if you were forced to become a child again and you constantly have to relearn everything, which comes with a lot of discomfort. It is not comfortable to be a child when you don't know how to walk and you keep on bumping your head to everything. Like, it's not comfortable. You have to learn doing these things. And so that's where we're at right now. It is uncomfortable, but it can also be very, very exciting. So mostly excited, sometimes scared.
Really loving this thread again of like self-awareness, where I think sometimes if you can just name what you're feeling, if you can name this, like what you're experiencing, it gives you like an element of control and being able to be like, okay, this is what this is. I'm not actually in danger. Which brings me to the very exciting part of the session where we're going to open it up to the audience. You are very welcome to use the Q button. If you haven't used the Q button before, it's just on your left-hand side, and it's got a little finger standing up. So you can just say, click the Q button. And if
Yeah.
Oh,
also, Lily, sorry.
like, stand back, lady. I'm the technical person around here.
No, it's because we had some questions in which I pinned, and I also added to your Notion doc, so you can check them.
Ah, you are good. You are so good. Okay, I have some questions in the Notion doc. So let's start with a nice, quick, simple one. What's your take on running multiple experiments at the same time?
If you're just getting started, I would highly, highly, highly recommend running only one experiment at a time. The main reason is because, again, you want to be able to complete your experiment. If you're running a dozen different experiments at the same time, it's going to be very difficult to finish any of them. The second one, which is, again, aligned with more of the scientific method, if you're changing everything at the same time, it's going to be very hard to know which variables are impacting which parts of your life and which parts of your work. It's much easier if you're changing one thing to know what's working and what's not working. I would give one exception if you're really excited to run 2 experiments, and that would be the maximum I would recommend. I think you can run 2 experiments if they are in completely different areas of your life. So maybe you're running an experiment at work where you say, from, for the next 3 weeks, we're going to run our meetings differently. Or for the next 2 weeks, I'm not going to check my emails for the first hour of the day. Or for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to have an out of office on at all time, saying that I'm only checking my emails once a day. Whatever it is that you've seen other people do and you're curious about, and you say, okay, I'm going to do that. That's in the work realm. And maybe you want to have an experiment where you say, for the next 10 days, I'm not going to bring my phone with me in the bedroom, or I'm going to meal prep on Sunday. And so this is more in the personal / health kind of part of your life. And so there's so little overlap between the two that if you really want to do 2 and they're in completely different areas of your life, I think that's okay.
Okay. Love it. And small plug for GW members. One of our members, Simran, inspired by Anne-Laure's book, is actually running a little experiment club in GW. I believe it's starting next week. So check your roundup email if you want to get involved and start running mostly one, maybe two, if you're really excited, experiments. Our second question, and I do apologize, I'm not sure who asked these questions. So thank you to who this person was. The non-linear career path is causing anxiety because the current job market values deep expertise and hard-earned skills. Being a generalist somehow stops us from gaining expertise. How can we prove our value in this tough market in today's world?
The only way to prove your value, I think, is through doing proof of work. I have a chapter in the book where I interviewed someone I've known for quite a few years now, and he is one of the best examples of a generalist that I've ever seen. And that's what he told me in his interview that really resonated with me. And so I decided to include it in the book. And so he was saying that he basically doesn't really try to connect with people or get a job or whatever based on his CV. If he wants to help a company with a project, he will do a mini version of that and he will send it to them. If he wanted to, I think, help with product hunt and they wanted to do a bit more thought leadership, I think he just went ahead and interviewed some experts and just sent the interviews to them without asking for permission. And he was like, hi, this is me. I'm very good at running interviews. By the way, I'm good at 1,000 other things and I can show you. And so I think when you're a generalist, if you tell people, I'm a generalist, I can do a bunch of things, they'll be like, cool. And I don't think that that's going to get you really far. But if you have a portfolio of work, or even better, if instead of having a portfolio of past work, you actually demonstrate to them that you can do a bunch of different things by running a tiny project, by doing a little thing for them that shows it. So really proof of work, I think, is the best way to approach the generalist.
I love that. I call this permissionless partnerships, and we're getting our website redesigned at the moment. And I wasn't looking to get our website redesigned. Someone just reached out and they had the wireframe and it was already done. And I was like, this is very hard to say no to, because now they provided so much value up front. Another example of this, recently in GW, I wanted to see how much I really enjoyed doing like regular podcasts. And so I ran an experiment for one day where we interviewed and we recorded, I think we did 6 or 7 in the end, podcasts in one day. And my theory was, if I enjoy this at the end, I'll probably enjoy doing this once a week or twice a week. And lo and behold, it was so much fun. And we are doing many more podcasts. So totally resonate with this.
That's amazing.
We have a question from John. How do you feel about the concept that people are being forced into risk and experimentation? For example, forced entrepreneurship.
Well, it is true that currently, because a lot of people don't feel like they have the same kind of job safety that they had before, have a lot of side projects, and that might not be the way they wanted to design their career. So yeah, I agree that some people might be forced into taking more risks than what they would want to do. I wouldn't talk about forced experimentation though, because people who tend to be in a situation where they need to have a side project or to freelance on the side or whatever that is, they need to have a little bit more stability when it comes to their income, they're not going to go for very experimental types of side projects. They will tend to go for the kind of either consulting or freelancing or design jobs or whatever it is that they know they're good at, that they know if they can just put some extra hours outside of their 9 to 5, they'll be able to make more money. They're not trying to take more risks and then not trying to experiment more. And that touches upon an important point, which is that this is also why I encourage people to run tiny experiments, is that experimenting requires you to feel like you have a little bit of safe space that where you can actually take some risk and try new things, and maybe that's not going to work, and that's okay. Keeping them tiny is very helpful in the sense that, again, you don't need to quit your job in order to run a tiny experiment. You don't even need more time to run a tiny experiment, because you can just take something you've already been doing for a while and doing it a little bit differently. Or I mentioned earlier the experiment of not bringing your phone to the bedroom with you for 2 weeks. That's not an experiment that requires anything for you to try and see if it helps with your sleep and your mental health. So I would put those two things into two categories. Forced entrepreneurship, 100%. So many people have to start businesses and freelance and do side projects and get a second job, not because they want to be entrepreneurs, but because they don't feel stable enough in their main job. Forced experimentation, not so sure.
I hope that helps, John. Let us know if you have any follow-up questions there. We have a question from Julia. How do you determine the length of time to run an experiment? Is there a tool or a process that you follow?
It depends on a few factors. So first, how comfortable or uncomfortable are you with the thing you're going to try? If it's something you've never tried before, completely new, super scary, go tiny, 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 tiny. A few days or a few repetitions. I think it's helpful sometimes to think in terms of repetitions and not days, just because if the experiment is around a weekly newsletter, for example, you might say 3 repetitions, 3 weeks, and then you can decide. So it might look longer because it's 3 weeks, but it's just 3 repetitions. And so let's take that example of the newsletter. So you've never, ever published anything online, super scary. You're literally like, your hands are shaking a little bit. You're thinking about it. You kind of want to do it. You're super curious. Go with a tiny, tiny version of it. If you've written online in the past, maybe you even had a blog as a teenager, and this is something that you have a pretty good sense of, I think I'm going to like this, but I need a bit of a commitment device to do it for a bit longer and see if I'm actually going to like it. Go for something a bit bigger. Say 3 months. I'll do it for 3 months, and at the end of the 3 months, we'll see if I like it or not. So that's the first factor, which is how comfortable or not comfortable you are with the thing. And then there's a more purely logistical factor. What can you fit? What can you fit with your current life, your other commitments? And by other commitments, I don't mean just your work, your relationships, your friendships, your hobbies, your health, your sleep. Like all of that is really important too. What can you fit? And so if you're not quite sure, or if your schedule is a little bit unstable at the moment, maybe you travel a lot or whatever, and you don't know if you'll be able to commit to something longer, just go for something really small for now as well. You don't need to have something really big. And the last thing I will say on this is that the duration itself can be a parameter in the way you experiment. And so I would always start with the smaller version when you're hesitating. If you hesitate between 1 month and 2 weeks, go for 2 weeks. Between 2 weeks and 5 days, go for 5 days. And if you like it, as I mentioned earlier, you can always go for another cycle of experimentation, and you can always do it for a little bit longer.
Brilliant. Tiny. The key word, the key message, tiny and see it through. That is what I'm taking from this. Ved, come up on stage. Welcome.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hi, Mary. I'm good. I'm feeling good. How are you doing? And Anne-Laure, nice to meet you. Thanks for
Nice to
taking
meet
the
you.
session. I've actually discovered you through Kahi's podcast, the interview you did a few months ago, and there was a point you mentioned about the liminal space, how when you are not having a lot of clarity, you tend to get pulled back by gravity to something that's more familiar. I'm feeling that right now. It's actually kind of almost funny because you know you don't want to go back, but then there's this pull. I'm wondering, how do you manage that in the sense of both from a psychology perspective and also in the action? I think the action is through the tiny experiment, but there's also this, the scripts are heavy. I think that's the word for it. They're like anchors. They're your sense of identity, your sense of, oh, this is what my reality was. So curious about that.
Yes, thank you. This is a great question. So there are two parts to this. The first one is that a misconception people might have about living a more experimental life is that it needs to be super experimental all the time. We need to experiment with everything. The reality is that it actually ebbs and flows, and it really depends again on your mental capacity at the moment, your emotional capacity at the moment, even your financial capacity at the moment, how much risk you can take, how much you can experiment. And so what I encourage people to do is to, again, being very intentional and aware of the scripts that you're following and whether you want to follow them right now or not, and following them for a certain period of time in full awareness is not necessarily a problem if you know that's what you're doing right now. And then the second part is that what I encourage you to do is to always have at least a small part of your life where you experiment, a small part. And so even if right now you don't have the mental, emotional, financial capacity to experiment in a bigger way or take bigger risks, and so you feel the gravity, the pull of those scripts that feel reassuring that you can go back to, that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm going to give you an example. After my book came out in March, I honestly was completely burned out, in which I know the irony of it. I talk about mindful productivity, taking care of your mental health. Let me tell you, during the book launch, everything I recommend doing and I normally do went out of the window for a few weeks. And I think it's very important to be transparent about that. Yes, systems, yes, they work 90% of the time and it's great. There are moments where they don't work. And I came back from the US where I was on my book tour, came back to the UK where I live, and I was like, I can't work, I can't think, I can't write, I can't do anything. I'm fried, I have zero energy left. And so I actually decided for a few weeks to go back to the super linear part of my life, which is the academic research. And for a few weeks, I literally just showed up, went to the lab, did my data collection, which, by the way, sounds glamorous, maybe neuroscience, but it's the most boring thing in the world, where every day I come and I need to set up the equipment in exactly the same way. Nothing needs to change, press the same buttons. And even when the participant walks into the lab, I have to greet them in exactly the same way, so I don't change the result of the experiment by saying something different. So I'm a little robot saying the exact same thing every day. And normally I balance this with the creativity, the writing, my newsletter, Nest Labs, and this is how I have a nice balance in my life. At that moment, I was so grateful for the scripted life where I didn't have to think and I just had to show up and do what I was told. And yet I was careful about keeping a little bit of experimentation in my life. And so what experiment did I pick? I picked something that had nothing to do with work. And I said, for the next 12 weeks, I'm going to study one new medicinal plant every week. And that's it. And by studying, it was mostly drinking tea and thinking about life. But still, every week I would pick a different herb, make myself tea, and read about it. One herb every week for 12 weeks. And that's it. And that was my experiment. And that was keeping a little bit of experimentation in my life while I recovered from that burnout. So don't blame yourself if you're feeling the gravity of the scripts. Be aware if at some point you need to go back to a more linear life. Yes, fine. Just notice that that's what you're doing. And once you have a little bit more energy and when you're ready to experiment more again, then go back to bigger experiments.
Yeah, what an amazing example with the tea. We are here. We're here for it. We're here for the tea. We have Steve. Hey, Steve. Come on up. Hi. Welcome. Let me unmute you. Edja, can you unmute Steve? I can't seem to unmute. You're up. Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. Thanks, Millie. Really nice to meet you, Anne-Laure. Thanks for that. So, What was my question? I've written it down, which is handy. So my question was actually about. So I'm listening to this, and it's really interesting. And I was wondering about the link between creativity and experimentation, and probably neurologically, because it feels like to creative people, creativity feels experimental. So I'm quite interested if the same kind of things are going on neurologically. But I mean, because as a creative person, I mean, I feel like I kind of warm to experimentation. I get excited by it. But yeah, I think that's a. Does that make sense? That question?
Yeah, I guess at a neurobiological level, there is a link in the sense that both creativity and experimentation require to be a little bit more comfortable with trying new things and taking risks.
Mm.
And so we know, for example, that in the creative process, you have the dopaminergic system that's activated because there's a sense of what they call variable reward. So when you create something new, and especially something that you've never tried creating before, so let's say that you try writing in a different style, or you're a designer and you try building and designing a new thing, you don't know how it's going to come out, right? It might be the most beautiful thing you've ever created, or it might be really ugly. And it's for your brain, this little it's very similar to what happens in your brain when you play with a slot machine, except that obviously they've created a way more addictive version of that. But this little sense of, what's going to happen here? That gets us excited, and where we want to keep on trying and see what's going to happen next. And you find that when we experiment, when we play, this is how children learn. And this is why dopamine is linked to learning as well, right? Because you have this reinforcement of the reward of trying new things, not knowing what's going to happen, and learning from those predictions you're making and the errors that you're making. In the book, I talk a little bit more about experimentation, not necessarily in that sense of just trying new things and see what happens, but more based on the scientific method of really having a hypothesis where you're wondering, you're saying, I think my hypothesis, even though you don't have to say it in this formal way, but my hypothesis is that if I stop bringing my phone to the bedroom every evening, I will sleep better. That's my hypothesis. Might be correct, might not be correct. I'm going to run an experiment for 2 weeks, and I'm going to observe whether my hypothesis is correct or not. And this is a little bit different from the creative process in the sense that it's a little bit more structured. That being said, I've had a lot of people who are naturally very creative and experimental who love the method I describe in Tiny Experiments because it's basically giving them a more structured approach to direct their experimental mindset so they can try new things and answer questions and follow their curiosity in a way that is slightly more productive. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I know I can tend to be all over the place, so sometimes bring in a little bit of structure. So that's very helpful. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I can see that Edja has just asked in the chat, what's a tiny experiment that you're thinking of doing next? And I can see that Gregor is thinking of run a season of 15 events.
That's actually a really good one. I'm at week I think 8 of my tiny experiment with the herbs. So
yeah,
just going to finish that one and not necessarily try to think about the next one yet. I also tend to choose my experiments really based on how I'm feeling in the moment and what is needed. So I don't tend to plan them. In advance. So we'll see in a few weeks when I'm done with this one, what the next one will be. So the answer in my case is that I don't know, but I saw in the chat the one about running events, reaching out to potential clients Denise posted is actually really good. There's someone in the Nest Labs community that did something like that where they said I think they did that for 3 months, and every Monday they reached out to someone on LinkedIn that they admired. So maybe they read one of their posts or a book, or they saw them at a conference or anything like that, and they would just send them a message. And what's really important with any kind of tiny experiment is really to focus on you showing up and doing the thing. So outputs you can control. And so with that kind of outreach, you send a message and then you see. And you can, if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to, you can keep track of how many people reply to you, what's working, what's not working. But the most important thing is just to do it and see if good things happen. For the events is the same, you just run them. And so it's really not about KPIs or OKRs or whatever performance metrics that you might decide to try to do. It's really about showing up, collecting your data, and seeing what happens.
I suppose in some ways it's kind of like keeping a promise to yourself, like going through for the duration to see that promise through. We have
Yes.
a comment from by Ravi. I hope I've said that correctly. Apologies if not. Do you think it's okay to return to something you think you won't enjoy if it means it will open doors in the future?
Oh yeah, I didn't want to bore you for like an hour about YouTube, but I actually did go back to YouTube.
Nice.
And I still didn't like it, but the second time if you go back to your experiment, there's no point doing the same thing again, because that's just torturing yourself. Don't do that. What I did the second time was because I was feeling like maybe it's because I'm trying to do it all on my own, and maybe if someone helped me, then that would be a little bit easier. And so I hired an editor to help me to create the videos. And it was a bit better. I was having a bit more fun. And actually, I really liked editing the videos together, giving feedback, figuring out a visual style and all of that. But the problem was that the core part of having to sit in front of the camera and record myself, there was no way out of it. And I actually don't know how I feel about it. I know that we're getting to a point where I'll probably in a few months or maybe next year, I'll probably be able to upload a bunch of footage of myself and have an AI read a script like it's me. And I need to think more about that. Like I don't know how I feel about it yet. So we'll see. I might go back to YouTube when there are new tools and ways of going about it where I don't have to face this anxiety. So to answer your question, yes, absolutely. Completely okay. I actually encourage you to go back to previous experiments. In the book, I call stopping an experiment, I call it pause. I say it's a pause. Like you put it on your shelf and you might maybe never go back to it, but saying it's a pause is giving you the permission to go back to it in the future whenever it feels right, or there's a new tool, new circumstances. Again, yes, the world is changing, but you're changing too. And it might be that in the future that sounds appealing to you again. And so back to it, give it a try. Just don't do the exact same thing. Try something different.
That's brilliant. We have one last question before we wrap up, and it is Julia. Julia, come up on stage. Can we?
Trying to find her on the files down there.
Hi, Julia.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go on.
This has been such a refreshing conversation I want to start off with. So thank you so much for both of your time and all the questions. So I am one of those creative people who my everyday kind of feels like many experiments. And I was curious because in order to run effective experiments, you need to have a control, right? And so like your life should be the control. I'm curious about how to run experiments to create a life that feels like a good, solid foundation to be your control. And that might be a question we can't answer in 2 minutes, but that is my question because I don't feel like currently, I feel like everything in my life is an experiment, and that is exhausting. As a creative, as I heard some of you say.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily aim to create a control because that is just impossible. You're not a like laboratory, you're a human being. And so you're never going to be able to run your life like a robot in a way where going to be possible to have this team control. What you can try to experiment with though is maybe taking some portions of your life, looking at your day and say, where can I create a routine that could be an experiment? So right now I'm doing, everything is different. Every day is different. I'm all over the place. What if I started the first 2 hours of my day every day? They have to be the same. What do I put in those 2 hours? And that's like, I create a control, not for my entire life, but for the first 2 hours of the morning, just that. Or for some people, I have friends for whom their bedtime routine is more important. So what would it look like if those 2 hours were more structured? And for a while, you really commit to no changing everything, no trying 1,000 different things, just doing the same thing for a fixed duration and see what happens. So yeah, just forget about the idea of turning your life into a control. That's not going to happen. That being said, if you feel like it's exhausting, that this feeling of being scattered and really being all over the place, pick a little section of your day and try to see what it feels like to be a bit more focused for just a specific section of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question, Julia. We are at time, friends. We have dropped the link for Anne-Laure's book, which you have to buy it to see what it looks like.
I have it in the yeah, looks like this.
Yes, it's beautiful. It's a wonderful, wonderful read. So the link is in the chat. If this resonated, you will love the book. If you loved this, drop on LinkedIn. Tell the world what you learned today. Make sure you tag Anne-Laure, tag us at GW, and we will help amplify. Anne-Laure, thank you so much for your time. And
thanks so much for having me. This was a lot of fun, and what a beautiful community. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you. See you later. Have a great day, everyone.